For members of the Jewish faith, Passover is among the most important religious holidays observed each year. It centers around the story of the God of Israel miraculously freeing the Israelites from Egypt, where they had been held in bondage for over 400 years. Through plagues and disaster, the Israelites were freed from slavery and commanded to observe the day of Passover as a memorial. Unsurprisingly, this story of redemption from slavery took on special significance for many during the American Civil War. But for the approximately 7,000 Jews who served in the Union Army during the war, observing Passover proved difficult, if not impossible. Far away from family and friends, few had the resources necessary to properly observe the holiday. Despite these difficulties, one group of Jewish men endeavored to observe the holiday during their service. In 1866, an account of this Civil War Seder was published in the Jewish Messenger. In 1861, shortly after the onset of hostilities, Joseph A. Joel, a Jewish man from Cleveland, enlisted as a private in the 23rd Ohio Volunteer Infantry Regiment. In the spring of 1862, he, along with about 20 other Jewish men in the regiment, were serving in what is now West Virginia, pursuing the forces of Confederate General John B. Floyd through the heavily forested terrain. Joel writes, "While lying there, our camp duties were not of an arduous character, and, being apprised of the approaching feast of Passover, 20 of my comrades and co-religionists belonging to the regiment united in a request to our commanding officer for relief from duty in order that we might keep the holy days. Their commanding officer, future President Lieutenant Colonel Rutherford B. Hayes, readily granted the men his permission." The account continues, quote, "The first point was gained, and, as the paymaster had lately visited the regiment, he had left us plenty of greenbacks. Our next business was to find some suitable person to proceed to Cincinnati, Ohio, to buy us matzos. Our sutler, being a co-religionist and going home to that city, readily undertook to send them. Several barrels of matzos arrived by train on the eve of Passover, as well as the requisite prayer books. The group was also able to procure 2 kegs of cider, a lamb, several chickens, and some eggs. However, one crucial component of the Seder meal was absent: the bitter herbs intended to symbolize the bitterness of slavery in Egypt. Horseradish or parsley we could not obtain," writes Joel, "but in lieu we found a weed whose bitterness, I apprehend, exceeded anything our forefathers, quote, enjoyed," end quote. Thus, the preparations were complete. Joel recounts, quote, "I was selected to read the services, which I commenced by asking the blessing of the Almighty on the food before us and to preserve our lives from danger. The ceremonies were passing off very nicely until we arrived at the part where the bitter herb was to be taken. We all had a large portion of the herb ready to eat at the moment I said the blessing. Each ate his portion when, the horrors! What a scene ensued in our little congregation! It is impossible for my pen to describe. The herb was very bitter and very fiery, like cayenne pepper, and it excited our thirst to such a degree that we forgot the law authorizing us to drink only 4 cups, and the consequence was we drank up all the cider. Those that drank the more freely became excited, and one thought he was Moses, another Aaron, and one had the audacity to call himself Pharaoh. The consequence was a skirmish, with nobody hurt. Only Moses, Aaron, and Pharaoh had to be carried back to the camp and left there in the arms of Morpheus. This slight incident did not take away our appetite, and, after doing justice to our lamb, chickens, and eggs, we resumed the second portion of the service without anything occurring worthy of note. There, in the wild woods of West Virginia, away from home and friends, we consecrated and offered up to the ever-loving God of Israel our prayers and sacrifice. I doubt whether the spirits of our forefathers, had they been looking down on us, standing there with our arms by our side, ready for an attack, faithful to our God and our cause, would have imagined themselves amongst mortals, enacting this commemoration of the scene that transpired in Egypt." Joel later recounted, quote, "Since then, a number of my comrades have fallen in battle, defending the flag that they have volunteered to protect with their lives. I have myself received a number of wounds, all but mortal, but there is no occasion in my life that gives me more pleasure and satisfaction than when I remember the celebration of Passover of 1862.